Hello, and welcome to Protein Talk number 1, an introduction to protein. What are proteins? Proteins are essential nutrients involved in virtually every cellular activity. They function as enzymes that catalyze or facilitate biochemical reactions in our bodies. They function as hormones, such as insulin, which helps to regulate our blood sugar. Proteins are also important for structural support and transportation of molecules. And finally, they function as antibodies, which help us fight infections. What are proteins made of? Proteins are made of amino acids, which are similar to the letters of the alphabet. As such, they serve as the raw materials or building blocks from which proteins are made. Proteins are composed of 20 amino acids, but only 8 of those are essential. This means that only these 8 essential amino acids cannot be made by our body and need to be derived from our foods. It is important to note here that both plant and animal foods make all 20 amino acids. Where do we get our protein? If we look at this slide, we see the more familiar sources for protein, which are animal products, specifically beef, chicken, pork, turkey, dairy, fish. But what about plant foods? A less known fact is that plant foods, and not just beans, are also an excellent source of protein. In fact, as early as 1942, studies were being conducted to demonstrate the effect of plant proteins on humans. These studies were done by Dr. William Rose of the University of Illinois, and he looked at the minimal intake requirement for each of the 8 essential amino acids. He focused on only the 8 essential amino acids because, if you remember, we can make the rest ourselves. What Dr. Rose discovered was that after only 2 days of not receiving enough of even one amino acid, the participants in his study complained of nervous irritability, extreme fatigue, and a profound failure of appetite. Through his studies, Dr. Rose was able to determine the minimal level required for each of the 8 essential amino acids. Then, to allow for a safety margin, he took this minimal level and doubled it to create what he called a definitely safe intake. Using these parameters, a wide range of plant foods were tested, and every single one of the plant foods were found not only to be adequate, but to be in excess of the definitely safe intake, which, if you remember, is twice the minimum requirement. If you're interested in learning more about plant foods as complete proteins, please listen to Protein Talk number 2, titled Complete Proteins, Plant Foods versus Animal Foods. Since 1974, the World Health Organization, using a large safety margin, has recommended that adults consume 5% of calories from proteins and 6% if you are pregnant. To put this in perspective, human breast milk is 5% protein and is consumed by a baby who is doubling in size while only consuming that food. When was the last time we as adults needed to double in size? Why then should the protein percentage we as adults need be any greater? Such as in our typical Western diet, which contains 10 to 35% protein. So how much does 5% translate for a male? Let us assume we have a moderately active average American male who consumes about 3,000 calories a day. Step number 1, we want to calculate 5%, which is our daily protein requirement, of 3,000, the daily caloric intake. And this will give us the number of calories of protein that a male eating 3,000 calories a day needs. So, 3,000 times 5% gives you 150 calories, which means a male eating 3,000 calories a day needs to get about 150 calories from protein. Step number 2. Now we want to know how many grams are in 150 calories. Proteins have 4 calories per gram, So, since there are 4 calories in every 1 gram of protein, we want to divide 150 by 4, which gives us 38 grams. This means that a male eating 3,000 calories a day requires 38 grams of protein. What about a female? Well, let's do the same calculation for a moderately active average American female who consumes about 2,300 calories a day. Again, step 1, we calculate 5%, our daily protein requirement, of 2,300, the daily caloric intake. And this gives us the number of calories of protein that a female eating 2,300 calories needs in one day. So 2,300 times 5% gives us 115 calories, which means a female eating 2,300 calories a day needs to get 115 calories from protein. Step number 2, again, we want to know how many grams are in 115 calories. So we take 4 calories per gram, because proteins have 4 calories per gram, and we divide 115 by 4. That gives us 29 grams. So a female eating 2,300 calories a day requires 29 grams of protein per day. To put this in perspective, a United States nickel weighs about 5 grams. So 38 grams, the daily requirement for a male, would be the weight of about 8 nickels, and 29 grams, the daily protein requirement for a female, would be about the weight of 6 nickels. How much protein do we actually get? In the U.S., the recommended daily intake for protein is 10 to 15%, which means it's recommended that we get 10 to 15% of our daily calories as protein. That translates into about 75 to 113 grams for a male eating 3,000 calories a day, and between 58 and 86 grams for a female eating 2,300 calories a day. This is about 2 to 3 times what we actually need and what has been recommended by the World Health Organization. To learn more about why too much protein is dangerous, please listen to Protein Talk number 3, titled, Meat is an Unhealthy Package for Protein. Why then do we worry? We worry because if we say we're on a plant-based diet, we are constantly bombarded by questions such as, where will you get your protein? Hopefully by now we have learned and are comfortable with the fact that not only do we not need that much protein, but we can get all the protein we need from a nutritious plant-based diet. The truth is that in today's world, we really don't see protein deficiency unless someone is truly starving. In other words, unless someone is not meeting their daily caloric requirements. The bottom line is that if you meet your daily caloric requirement with nutritious whole plant foods, you will get all of the protein that you need. In summary, and a few take-home messages for you. 1. Proteins are essential nutrients for proper body functioning. 2. Plant foods provide all of the essential amino acids. 3. The recommended percentage of protein you should consume daily is about 5%, and 6% if you are pregnant. 4. Most Americans consume at least twice the recommended daily dose of proteins. And 5. Remember that if you meet your daily caloric requirement with nutritious whole foods, you will get all of the protein that you need. This concludes our talk and introduction to protein. Thank you for listening.